Hello, sexy beast. Here, welcome to episode number 37 of Explode Your Coaching Business podcast, brought to you by gtex.org.uk. I'm your host, the one and the only Simone Vincenzi, and this is the podcast. Guess for who? Coaches, speakers, trainers who want to grow their businesses by making an impact in the world. To receive daily support in your coaching business sometimes can be quite an isolating experience. Being part of a community is what can drive us forward. Make sure you join our private Facebook group, Explode Your Coaching Biz. You can find us on Facebook. Also, once you join, we will give you the ultimate selling from the stage checklist, which is the most comprehensive checklist to create a pitch that sells without being a douchebag, which is something we're really passionate about. Today, I have the pleasure to interview the one and the only Andrew O'Brien. Now, Andrew is the founder of the Publicity Guy, which is a PR firm based on a sales-centered and proven business model. Focus on helping entrepreneurs gain and leverage media exposure to create stronger brands and build larger, more interactive audiences. Andrew has appeared on over 70 media channels, international and national media outlets like MTV, USA Today, MSNBC, BBC, NHK, Word, Al Jazeera, and many other larger-scale networks. He has become the most requested speaker in his industry and travels globally, speaking to the world's foremost government agencies and private organizations. Now, Andrew's success has enabled him to become the top in his field, and he has tripled his fee in less than 1 year. In this interview, we are going to talk about how to get media exposure, how to start having media attention. If you're starting out and you're thinking, I haven't done anything with my business or with my life, how can you start generating attention? And also, if you're a bit more seasoned, how can you leverage your business with media exposure? It's going to be jam-packed, so make sure you listen to all the strategies because I took notes during all the interview. Now, if you want to get in touch with Andrew, there are all the links in the show notes, so make sure that you look at the show notes here, either on the website or on the links that is provided here wherever you're listening in your podcasting platform. And make sure you subscribe to this podcast, because if you're not going to do it, I'm going to be very sad. You actually got to cry, but you want to make me happy, so subscribe to my podcast. And if you want to reach out to me, make sure you send me an email at Simone, which is Simon with an E, it's like the Italian swagger version of Simon, and Simone at gtex.org.uk. Come straight into my inbox. And with that, let's start the music. Hello and welcome again to episode number 37 of Explode Your Coaching Business Show. Today we are here with Andrew O'Brien. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing good. How are you, Simone?
I'm incredibly well, and I'm really excited about this interview because we are going to be talking about how to get media attention, and you are the top guy. You are the publicity guy, actually. So, because you are the publicity guy, the first thing that I want to ask you is, why is that important? Why is it important for people to get in as many media as possible, as you are preaching very well over Facebook, all over my newsfeed?
Yeah, a lot of people look at it and they think, oh, I just want to add some pretty logos to my website. And that's what a lot of people look at publicity as media exposure as. And I don't believe that that's true, and I've proven that it's not true. You want to get on as much media as possible for a couple different reasons. One is it gives you instant credibility. When you get on places like Entrepreneur, Forbes, Inc., Business Insider, and those places are calling you the top of your industry, they're going to trust those places more than they're going to trust you when you say that you're the top of the industry. Also, when it comes to visibility, you want to get in front of millions of people. Yes, you can spend $1,000 a day on Facebook and reach about 45,000 people, but not know how many people are going to click that, how many people are going to read it, how many people are going to opt in for your lead. What media exposure does is it creates that organic vision, the organic viewership, where you literally, one of my clients, I just got him in front of 124 million people in the last 90 days. I got another one in front of 122 million and another one in front of 47 million.
Whoa. They are serious numbers there.
Yes.
Yeah. But is incredible the work that media can do. But the question I have for you before we go into more strategy and tactics, as you know, guys, that we are going to do, the question that I want to ask you is, what got you interested in media? Is like just one day you woke up and say, you know what, I'm the publicity guy, can't listen to me, or is that something else behind that?
Now, I went through a crazy life experience. So my brief overview is I was raised by a prostitute. I experienced war in Iraq. I've attempted suicide, and then I had to testify in court against my mother for murder. So I went through 4 major things in my life: prostitution, war, suicide, and murder. And as I went through all that, I realized that other people out there are going through traumatic experiences. They felt the same things that I felt, and I wanted to share my story to give them hope. And so I became a public speaker. First, I wrote a book, which is really just a little guide. It was a 32-page guide.
Right.
And I made a video. I sent it out to some news outlets to try to get some coverage. And I got onto Fox News Austin the first time. Then I got into the Austin American-Statesman, which is a local newspaper. And that one got picked up by the Associated Press and went all around the world. And it boosted my career. It built my career. So for 3 years, I became the top requested speaker for the United States military. I got to travel to really cool places. I've been able to speak at places like the White House and Pentagon. And I was able to do all of that because of the amount of publicity and media exposure that I had gotten. Because I got so much publicity and media exposure that I became so loud that people couldn't ignore me anymore. And I realized this is what entrepreneurs need. They need to get so loud that they can't be ignored, because there's so much noise out there. You know, there's so many coaches, there's so many speakers, there's so many trainers. It's just, how do you stand out above that as you leverage publicity? And so since I did it for myself, I got myself on over 70 global media outlets. So I've been on BBC, NHK, MSNBC, USA Today, Huffington Post, Al Jazeera, MTV, and ABC, Fox, CBS, NBC, all of them. And I did that in 3 years. So that led me into becoming the...
Hold on, so 170 media outlets? 70 media outlets in 3 years, and we're not talking about my local newspaper. We are talking about media where that have eyeballs of millions of people. And when you were sharing your story, which I've heard it before, I was familiar with by following you on Facebook and the work that you do. There is a question that some of my clients ask me when talking about when I mentor them in teaching, telling their stories. They say, I don't want to go too personal. Now, some of these people that are telling me this, they just are not even close to what you went through. So the question, I guess, to start is, wasn't there any shame, or wasn't there any thought from your side where you're saying, wow, I got a freaking hell of a story here. What other people are going to think of me if this gets out?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I hear it all the time. I don't want it to be too personal. I want to focus on business. But business is personal. People want to buy from those that they feel connected to, that they feel understood by, and that they know, like, and trust. And to create that know, like, and trust is to be fully transparent with your audience about everything. There's not a part of my life that is not public. And that's because I've chosen that, because I know that that's what builds trust with my audience. That's what makes people trust me. It's what makes people buy my service, buy my courses, do things with me, work with me, because they like me because of how transparent I am and because of my story. It's not because I'm great at getting results. That's not the reason that they do it. The first reason they reach out to me is because they're like, wow, that's an amazing story. That's an insane story. I want to learn more about you. I want to get to know you. It creates a connection instead of just, hey, I'm awesome at publicity, come buy my service.
And how was it for you the first time you got your story out there? Was it, did you knew that you had to put your story out there? There was any internal fight on it, if you have to remember when you started? Or were you just, you know what, that's my story, let me share it?
No, it was definitely very, very challenging when I first started. I had a big internal fight about whether I should share some of the parts of the story. And I didn't start out sharing my entire life. I started out with one part of my story. And then as I got comfortable sharing that part of my story, then I added the other part. So I took time to get used to it, and I didn't share it all at once. But something I realized after 3 years of media exposure is when you get a lot of media exposure like I did, you get a lot of haters and you get a lot of hateful comments. I've had people tell me to kill myself. I've had people tell me some really, really hateful things and say hateful things to me. And it's just after so long, it just stopped bothering me to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to put it all out there. I don't care what anyone thinks or says, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get in front of the right people. So the wrong people are always going to be there, but I don't care about the wrong people. I care about the right ones.
And I think that in what you said, there is a great learning and a great lesson for anyone out there that is listening to this episode and is saying, I've got a hell of a story, I'm not ready to share it all. Well, you don't need to start sharing it all. You can build your kind of like sharing muscle and start with one part of your story, and then the more comfortable you will be, more of your story can come out. But at least start with something. Otherwise, as Andrew says, there is no connection between who you are and what you do. And people, they don't care much about what you do. They care more about who you are as a person, right?
Right.
That's brilliant. So now let's go in a bit more tactical, and I'm going to ask you some more personal questions along the interview. It's going to be quite an informal one, but now let's go a bit more into the tactics. Let's say I am a newbie. I'm starting out. I went to a seminar and I knew I had a message to share and I knew I had an inspiring story, and I wanted to say, I'd said I'm going to become a coach or a speaker. I want to be on that stage. Where do I start in getting media attention if I haven't done maybe anything remarkable yet?
Right. So if you're new, if you're new and you haven't had any experience, or you're just starting a business, a great place to start is podcasts. It's a great place to start getting media exposure. You go to the newer podcasts. Don't go after like the big ones like Entrepreneur on Fire, because you're probably not going to get onto those, but start building up your media portfolio, start doing interviews. Because the thing is if you're new, if you've never done this before, you're going to be really uncomfortable, you're going to stutter, you're going to not know what to say. So you need to do some podcast interviews for smaller podcasts so that you can get used to it, so you can build your confidence up, so you can work on your communication skills, and so it can start to build you a name and a following. And so that's what you want to do. If you're new, you want to start small and work your way up. The hardest part about publicity is being patient, but patience is one of the most important parts of it. You've got to build a name up. You don't just become a one-hit wonder overnight. You got to build your name up, and you want to be around for a long time, not just a quick couple of days.
It's true. And do you recommend any strategy to your clients to get into podcasts? So where to look for, or how to approach them? Is that difficult? What do you say to your clients?
When they're new and just starting out, what I suggest doing is tapping into their current network. So if you don't have a current network of entrepreneurs or people in your industry, start going to conferences where you can start to build that network, get to meet some people and grow your relationships, grow friendships, and then tap into that network. If you're friends with people that have podcasts, they'll have you on. They're not going to send you through a whole process to decide if they're going to have you on. So just do it that way. Start out with your friends and your local network, and then tap into those and use those later on to get more.
And I think there are really no excuses, because now there are, I don't know, many hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and some of them are big, some of them are small. So just go there, as Andrew said, tap into your network, look on other podcasts and contact the podcast, the host of the podcast, and ask them. I think it's that simple, right? For smaller networks, for smaller.
Yeah. What I would suggest is never ask for a podcast host to feature you on the first email. What you want to do is you first listen to a couple of their podcasts, then you send them an email, introduce yourself, and just tell them how much you enjoy their podcast. And that's what you do on the first email. You just tell them how much you enjoyed it. You don't say, hey, can I be on your podcast? It's, hey, I just want to let you know I've been listening to your podcast. I love your work. That one episode where you said this, that was absolutely amazing. I just wanted to reach out, introduce myself, and tell you, great podcast. So what you did there is you're opening the door instead of, hey, will you please put me on your show? If you don't know them personally, that's not going to work. So you start the relationship, tell them that you're a fan, and then build that relationship, and then ask them to be on their show.
is there something quirky or interesting? Sometimes we have all interesting stories that happen while you were contacting one of those podcasts for you to be featured in, or like a response that you weren't expecting, or maybe a result that you weren't expecting from one of these podcasts for yourself or one of your clients.
The funny thing is I've gone through a lot, and so what I'm going to do, instead of sharing a success, I'm going to share a failure.
Go for it.
So I've gone through 4 years of doing this work, and so I've learned a lot through that, and I've learned more than my failures than I have from my successes, so I like to share those. A failure that I've had is I reached out to this podcast host, didn't even listen to the podcast, and I just knew it was in the entrepreneur field because it said, iTunes said it was. So I reached out to this podcast and said, hey, I got this great client, he does amazing things, I would love for him to be on the show. So again, I didn't do what I just told the audience to do. I just reached out and said, hey, can you please interview my client?
Yeah.
And what he did is he responded and said, well, if you would have listened to my interview and my podcast, I never have guests on the show. This is just me giving advice. And so that was the light bulb moment where I was like, okay, so maybe I should actually do research before I'm just reaching out and asking people to feature my clients.
Really, really interesting. And I think what I'm listening to at the moment at Gary Vee's book, the Gary Vee Show, and he is stressing a lot about the importance of context. It's all about context. You cannot go out there and it's almost like going to a networking event and without any context, you hand out your business card to everyone. How many people are going to get back to you? 0. It's very simple. So, and now I would love to hear a success, something great that happened from maybe one of these podcast interview that you might not expect either for yourself or one of your clients.
Let's see.
I mean, I know you have many because I've listened. I'm following you on Facebook, and there are a lot of great success stories. What happened?
Right. So I have a student in my master class who just got on TV yesterday, and she was on her local TV, and it was a live TV show. And I'm using this method as an example because it works for a podcast too. But the response was like, literally, they came out and interviewed her the same day that she pitched them.
Wow.
And it's because the way that she did it the way that I taught. You do your research, and when you're contacting them, you're not just saying, hey, I've got this awesome story. It's, hey, I've read your previous work, I've watched your show, I've listened to your podcast, I loved this specific one that you did, and you say the title and you talk about a specific time in that interview. So what you're doing is you're telling these people, hey, I've done my research. I'm not just spamming you. This isn't a copy and paste email. I actually know who you are, and I would feel honored to be interviewed by you.
That's great. That's incredible. And I think for everyone who's listening, guys, take notes, and even more than take notes. Right now, do it. Just like while you're listening to this interview, just go and look at maybe a list of podcasts you can contact. Take action always right now, immediately. And now, Andrew, how about if I am a bit seasoned? Let's say I grew a 6-7 figure business and I've been around for a while. Now it's time for me to leverage more, and I'm not interested in smaller podcasts. I want to get on the big media. I want to hang out with the big guys. How the heck do I do that?
Yeah, the most important thing for someone that's seasoned is because they've probably done many podcast interviews, they've probably done some blogs, they've probably had a couple of interviews already. So what I would suggest doing, the first step you want to do is you want to build a media page onto your website. And what a media page on your website is, and for example, you can go to thepublicityguy.com/media. And what it is a page where you've got your headshot and a bio, because that's what they're going to ask you for anyways, is a headshot and a bio. And then you've got a list of previous features. So on this page, they can go and they can click in, they can listen to previous podcasts you've done, they can read previous articles, they can watch previous TV shows you've been on. And that's what you want to do, is you want to leverage the publicity that you've already had and leverage that to get more. So you're not this new guy, you're not this new girl who's just never been on the media before. You're successful, you've done this hundreds of times before. Go ahead and leverage that, create that media page, and that's what you want to do.
And do you put every single publication there? Do you put every single place that you've been featured, or are you selective on it?
Every single one. So the biggest thing is when a media contact comes and sees your media page and they have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, it impresses them.
Yep.
Right? They're not going to click on a lot of the links. They just want to see how much publicity have you had. So if you go to mine, there's a lot of links on there. Mm-hmm. And it's something you want to keep up with a lot. And what I'd suggest doing is putting the big ones first. So not arranging it by date, but more arranging it by what level of media outlet is it. For example, if you're on CNN or Good Morning America or BBC, that should probably be your first one. The local newspaper should probably be, the middle one. A small podcast should probably be your last one on that page.
Brilliant. And did you have or had any, what was your personal biggest success, the moment, because in all these 70 major media outlets that you were featured in the last 3 years, was there one that for you was the what the fuck moment where you wanted to do backflips in your living rooms when you got that?
Yeah, so there's actually one time. What happened was there's a case here called the American Sniper case, right? And so it was Chris Kyle. He was an American sniper that was murdered by another veteran, and it was all over the news. And it was going to trial. And when the court was happening, the media saw me as such a subject matter expert that they all reached out to me to ask me about it. So when the American Sniper movie came out, they had me make comments on it. When the trial happened, they had me make comments on it. So I'm not talking about small media outlets. I'm talking about the ones I listed, like MSNBC, USA Today, Al Jazeera, BBC, and NHK. All 5 of those outlets reached out to me when that movie was released and when the trial started, and they contacted me. I didn't contact them because they wanted to interview me because they saw me as a subject matter expert.
And what happened as a result of that? What happened to you and your career and your business as a result of those interviews coming from this moment?
Well, the bigger the interviews, the bigger the publications that interview you, the more you're able to charge. Because as you become more well-known, as you're able to say that, you've been on all this media, you're able to increase your fees. So I was a public speaker, so my original fees was $3,000 and it went up to $6,000 plus travel and lodging. And I started getting so many requests to go out and speak that I had to start turning some down because I didn't have enough time in my year to do them. Or I had to decide between two, whichever one's willing to pay me the most. So it really built my career. The more media I got, the more money I made.
And do media pay you? Because I think I got a client that said, what's the point? They don't pay me. And I almost wanted just to strangle, with all the love and respect that I have for my clients. But I said, what the frick are you talking about right now? But I think that could be a good question. Do the media pay you, or do you do all? Is that all free? Is that all paid? How does it work? This world when you play with the big guys.
Yeah, the media never pays you, but you do get paid in the long run. For example, I've got a client. His name is Russell Brunson, founder of ClickFunnels, one of my biggest clients.
Yep.
And
who doesn't know Russell? Who doesn't know Russell Brunson?
I actually represent Russell for free now. And I always get that question, well, why? He's like your most successful, wealthy client. Why would you do it for free? And I tell people because I make more money off of him talking about me versus what he'd ever be able to actually pay me. Because he talks about me. He's a big cheerleader of mine. He's a big supporter, so his network knows that. And so his network constantly comes and spends money on me. And I've made more money off of his network than I could ever make off of him. So that's how you have to look at media. It's like doing free work to prove your value so that you can make more money.
And it works like a charm. I remember one of my biggest turning point for GTEx in our business was when I shared the stage with Les Brown. We had an event and I was asked to be the MC for Les Brown. After 2 months, the business was like, they were like doubling and tripling and quadrupling month after month just because of people seeing me with Les Brown, the picture that I have with Les Brown, and then when we had the event with Gary Vaynerchuk, even more. And these are, as what you're saying, is these are, no one can take this credibility away from you, ever. You have this for the rest of your life. If you have a scene on BBC or all the other medias, you have them for the rest of your life. No one can discuss. You've never been there, right? So now the question I have for you, Andrew, is what kind of work is expected from a person who wants to go on media? Like, do you need to contact thousands of medias every day? Do you have can you make it simple for someone who wants to contact media to get media publications?
Yeah, the biggest mistake everybody makes when it comes to media is they think it's a numbers game. I'm just going to write this press release, I'm going to send it to a contact database of thousands of people and hope someone bites it. That's how the majority of PR firms work. That's how the majority of people trying to get their own publicity, that's what they do. They just write this press release and send it out to every media outlet.
That's what they told me too.
Right. and that's the biggest waste of time. It's like, would you rather fish in an ocean where you can't tell where the fish are, or a small pond and you know where the fish are? So, you got to decide which one do you want to do. Do you want to sit around with your pole in the water and hope someone bites, or do you want to go out and actually get them to bite? And with the way you do that is you do your research and you find people who talk on your industry, on your topic. You don't go out, like if I'm going to be on entrepreneur.com, I'm not going to go to entrepreneur.com and just see the homepage and be like, okay, I'm going to reach out to every writer here on the homepage. I'm going to find writers that talk about marketing or publicity or branding, because that's my industry. That's who I want to talk to. That's who's going to be intrigued or interested in speaking to me. If I go and talk to someone who talks about video games or business coaching or personal development, that's not my industry. That has nothing to do with me. So what I'm going to teach they're not going to have any interest in. So you want to go out and you want to do the research. It takes time. It takes effort. But it's not a numbers game. It's finding the right contacts, not how many contacts can you find.
And how do you build a relationship? Is that we tapped on that before, on making sure that you show them that you've listened to them. Is that enough? Is there something else we can do to build a relationship with influential people that they can then consider us for a feature?
The biggest thing for it is you want to compliment them, you want to become a fan of theirs, you want to follow their work, but you also want to make it a win for them. If you really want to feature, you want it to make it a win for them. For example, if you want to be on a podcast, and it's a podcast you've always dreamed of being on, and what you say is, hey, I've got a great story, but more than about me, what I'm going to do to help you win is I'm actually going to spend money on Facebook advertising. I'm going to send paid traffic to your feature, to your article you just wrote about me, to the podcast interview you just did on me, because it's going to benefit my brand. What that's going to do is it's going to bring more eyes onto you. So I'm going to bring a ton of views onto the podcast if you interview me. So it's kind of like, hey, instead of just, I'm awesome, you should interview me, it's, hey, here's what I'm going to do to help you if you interview me.
I think this is a brilliant strategy. And for everyone who really is listening behind the strategy of what he's saying, I think that the principle is always adding value. Instead of thinking what's in it for me, think about what's in it for them to feature me. Because they can choose to feature, they have people. I think that the media outlet or podcast interviews, they always have someone they can interview, right?
Right. And they get thousands of emails. The bigger the media outlet, the more emails they get. So you want to figure out a way to stand out above them. And the majority of the emails they get is, hey, I'm awesome, you should interview me, versus, hey, I want to help you out. If you interview me, here's how I'm going to help you win.
And Andrew, how did you make that transition from, because that's for me, it's like, how did you make the transition between this is me going through all this trauma and my story going out, to teach other people about publicity? Was it straightforward? Was it easy? And the reason why I'm asking this question, it is because there are a lot of people that go into this expert industry and the coaching industry and the speaking industry, coming from previous career, coming from previous backgrounds, and sometimes that link is missing. So how was it for you?
The transition was different. The reason I made the transition was because I could no longer speak, and that's because the United States government went through a big budget cut where they wouldn't pay people like me to come out and speak anymore. That was my biggest client. I spoke at colleges, but they don't have large budgets either.
Yeah.
So it was this moment where I had to decide what's next for me. I can go work for someone else. I can start some company I don't care about. I can figure out how to make more money. But I've realized I have to be passionate about what I do. I have to, or I'm going to hate my life. And what I realize is I love entrepreneurs because they all have this mission, this purpose, this goal to change the world in some way. It doesn't have to be the entire world, but the world for someone. And I love the mission behind entrepreneurs, so I was like, well, how can I help them? And that transition was, okay, I've been on the media, I've learned how to do this, I did it without using a PR firm. Now I'm going to help other people do it. Other people who have this mission and this purpose, who have this drive to change the world. And that is what led into that transition.
So, as being a bit cliche, but you followed your heart.
I did.
You massively did. Now, I'm wondering, what is the future of media? You are a guy you're the publicity guy, so you are living and breathing the publicity industry day in and day out for yourself and for your clients. So now, where do you see this going? What is the future, and where do we need to tap? Is that more television? Is that newspaper, magazine? Is that maybe other people doing shout-outs for our podcast or on Instagram? Where is this going?
Everything is going to be moving to online. I will make an estimate right now that within the next, let's say 30 years. I'm going to say in the next 30 years, TV is going to die. Print is going to die. Newspapers aren't going to be useful anymore, and everything's going to move online. So any TV shows you ever want to watch, any news channel, you're just going to watch it online. When it comes to any type of publicity, it's all going to be online. People are now watching YouTube channels with millions of subscribers, more subscribers to the YouTube channel than watches your local news station. People are going to be focused on online blogs, online podcasts, online radio, online publications. So instead of print magazines, they can just go do it online. I don't subscribe to Entrepreneur Magazine. I don't need the print magazine. I just want, I can read everything they put in that print magazine online. So that's where I believe all media is going, and that's why we focus mainly on online publicity.
And do online publication right now, and online features have more or the same or less weight than traditional media as we intend?
I believe it has the same weight. So it doesn't matter if you're in the print magazine or if you're on the online publication for the same media outlet. It's still you're still on that media outlet. It doesn't matter what form you're on it. And actually being online is more beneficial to you. And the reason behind that is because when you are on TV, someone has to see you on TV, get off of their couch. So you're asking a lazy American to get off of their couch, who's cuddling with their kids, to go to a computer, to research you, to find you, to figure out how to contact you, to decide if they want to buy your services. You're putting 20 steps in between you and the prospect. Mm-hmm. When you're on an online publication, your name is in a pretty blue link, and it goes straight to where you want them to go. Click.
Done. Deal.
Yep.
That's brilliant. Who inspires you? Now we're just moving a bit of moving topic a bit, and I think that everyone has people or situations or ideas that inspire them. So who inspires you to do what you do or to keep going?
You know, there's one client that I have that he probably has the most haters out of every single one of my clients, and his name is Caleb Maddox, and he's a 14-year-old kid. And,
he actually came to London to speak at the personal development event of the year here.
Yeah, he travels the world, speaks on the biggest stages with the biggest people. He's speaking next month with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And so he's my biggest. He gives me the most motivation, and the reason behind that is I'm a father. So I want my kids to be business owners. I want them to be entrepreneurs. I don't want to grow them up to be sheep. And I watch this kid who has haters every single day, sending the most hateful messages, leaving the most hateful comments. People literally like his page just so they can hate on him. And he handles it like a champ. It doesn't faze him. It doesn't bother him. He is such a strong kid. I can tell you that I probably get more offended than he does over his haters. And it's just, that's what motivates me, is that these real world changers aren't going to allow the world